How do we stay sober in uncertain times? This last year has been proving pretty trying to many people, and a lot of people have actually taken up drinking, and a lot of people have struggled with previous drinking problems. And today, what we're going to do is talk to you about how Terry and I stay sober even when things seem to be going pretty crazy. You got political climate, you got financial issues, you got issues with the virus and all kinds of things out there. And we want to talk to you about how we stay sober even when things go crazy. Because while you see us here on the old YouTube, we look pretty happy and composed most of the time. And we don't want to give you the illusion that life is perfect and everything is always going right. We want to talk to you about the truth, the underbelly, if you will, of what actually goes on and what we actually struggle with in terms of how do we make sense of the world? How do we live in an environment where there is uncertainty? One of the books that is one of my favorite books is by Alan Watts, where it's called the Living in the Times of Uncertainty or something like that. And he talks about how to find peace in the midst of things that are going crazy. And I find that one of the best things I can do is, number one, not drink. Because when I drink, it makes me self-centered and it makes me think about how the world's affecting me rather than, hey, this world's affecting everyone. Like, you're not the only person affected, and we're all in this together. And most of the things that we worry about are socio-economical things that happen within the world that we've created in our mind. It was said years ago by a physicist that the map is not the territory, meaning that the map of the things that you make in your mind is not actually the territory. Take, for example, the election that's going on right now. You got people on both sides of the persuasion that are kind of going crazy and flipping out. And they're acting as if life is going to change. I talked to my dad last night, and he's like, oh, man, if this guy gets in, you're going to have communism, and he's going to sell America to China. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And even if it did, what are you going to do about it? Last I checked, you can't even call someone over there and talk to them. You can't even call a government guy. And so we have to look at it and say, well, what can we do? How can we affect our world? And how can we live in a serene time? And if we look at it, it's pretty interesting. I don't know about you guys, but I've lived through several elections that were the most important election of my lifetime. They're always the most important. And after everything's said and done, not all that much really changes in terms of day-to-day life. And so we have to look at this, and we look at these things that happen in our life, and most often than not, things don't really change. Sure, there can be things like illnesses and accidents and things that happen that, they do alter the course of our life. But most of the time what happens is we're spending 70% of our time thinking about the problem that we can't solve anyway, instead of learning how to adapt and learning how to live. And that's one of the things that I learned in sobriety is, I thought, how am I ever going to live in a world where there's no alcohol? How's that ever going to happen? I don't see that happening. And then when I got sober, I learned that it's really not that big a deal. I just live now and I don't drink. That's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, obviously, we have to do other things and learn to cope and learn to live without the security blanket that is our drunkenness. And we learn new ways of life. And I have learned that through sobriety, it's very different, but also not different. Nothing really changed in terms of my life other than everything, which is my state of mind. And I want you to look at that because everything is in your mind. And so we want to focus on that because uncertainty is in your mind. So, Terry, what are your thoughts on the topic today?
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all. Yeah, my problems have come from my mind. I saw this quote, what was it, yesterday or the day before? And it says, no matter who is elected president, don't worry too much. Most of the problems in your life will still be your own fault. And I thought that was pretty good because, most of the problems in my life, they're my own fault because I fabricated them in my mind. And all these worries and stuff, they can affect me, but I can also get out of these problems with my own thoughts and not focusing on them, focusing on the good that's going on and, staying away. There's all sorts of different little things you can do to help with these uncertain times. And a lot of it just has to do with being grateful in life, but, and trying to stay away from the negative. Like, don't turn on the news. Man, I turned on the news so early on Wednesday morning. Jeez, it was just ridiculous. I had to turn it off. And and I still want to. I want to check what's going on every second. And every channel is there. And then, we have people from Europe here as well. In Europe, you guys are all locking down again, which we probably should, but whatever. I don't have control over whether we're supposed to lock down. I can lock down myself. But that's what it is I can take care of what I have control over. And as far as the election, I did what I have control over, and that's it. I got to let it go and go from there and move on. No matter what happens, I can
Absolutely.
I can deal with my happiness.
Yeah, and I find that in our current state of existence with internet and phones and TV and up to the minute things, it gets really crazy. I mean, I saw people that were posting stuff about literally every minute they would take a screenshot and say, "Oh wow, these votes went this way and these votes went that way," and I think there's a problem in our life where we have that much viewing of everything where it's like, okay, maybe we don't need to check this every minute. Like, if you're watching a race on TV and you were to take like a blindfold or something and put it on and you were to put, only listen to it or whatever, it's going to be a completely different experience. Or if you were to, have to watch something and you watch every minute detail, what's happening is you're looking at a small snapshot of a big picture. And this is what happens with alcoholism is we're looking at a small snapshot of a big picture. Something pisses us off, something makes us sad or angry or whatever it is, and it's a small snapshot of our life. And we look at it as if it's the big gigantic picture of everything, and it's basically not. It doesn't really alter our lives as much as we think it's going to, or as much as it does in our head. And we look at that and we're like, okay, well, people are complaining about taxes and things like that. Well, there was a time here in America where the top tax rate was 91%. And people weren't like dying in the streets or anything. They just learn to live and learn to deal with whatever's going on. And we have to focus on that and we have to really guard our mind because the mind is like an input output machine and what you watch and what you give it is going to be what it reproduces. And it's like a lens. Your mind is literally like a lens and you get what you focus on. And if you focus on negative or you focus on positive, that's the outcome you're going to get. Now, when you drink, what happens in my life and in my mind, and I'm sure it's different for many other drinkers, is I tend to be skewed to the negative, but I can't see that I'm skewed to the negative. I can't see that that's affecting me in a way that is detrimental in the short term and sometimes even long term because the drink clouds the judgment, right? And we have to look at that and we have to focus and we have to really submit to the fact that we have our opinions, but we don't have answers. And that's okay. You can have an opinion, and that's fine. It's just your opinion. You're one of 8 billion opinions. Great, wonderful, go you. But you have to understand that a lot of things in life we don't understand. Like I get in my car and I drive somewhere. I don't understand how it works. I know the gas goes in there and some kind of thing bumps up and down and the wheels turn or whatever, but I don't really know how it works. I just use it to get from point A to point B. That's what I do. And now, cars are like practically robots, so it's even tougher to know how it works. And it's interesting because sometimes we don't need to know every minute detail of every single thing that's going on and scrutinize it under a microscope. This is something that is a big struggle for people that are trying to get sober. What we do is instead of saying, you know what, I have a drinking problem and drinking's not working for me. End of story. No, we take it further. We like to say, well, I have a drinking problem because when I was 8 years old, I had these shoes that were really tight and my mom yelled at me and I went to school and I got in trouble and now I'm afraid of everything and I don't go outside and I'm anxious and I'm a nervous wreck. No, you drink, therefore it's ruining your life. End of story. Okay, we can look at every minute detail, like how people look at the election. They're literally counting every second. They're like, oh, those. I saw one where they said, 130,000 votes came out of thin air for one guy. And it's like, yeah, because there was a certain politician who said, don't do mail-in voting. So naturally, all the mail-in ones are going to come from one guy. or pretty heavily slanted. And we have to look at things rationally, and we have to pull back and look at the whole picture and start to understand things. And while we bring in little politics stuff into this talk, it's really only to show you that the human mind is flawed. It's flawed. It's not perfect. We have things that are set to protect us that end up making our lives worse. And it's like, all you're doing is trying to protect. You look at anxiety. What is anxiety trying to do? It's trying to protect you from future things. Now, some people who are abused or have weird pasts or issues in their life, we get anxiety, and it's always like crazy. Like for me, I'll sit somewhere and I'll be anxious and I'm looking around, someone makes a sudden movement, and that's meant to protect me. It was like, hey, when you were a kid, some people hurt you and you had to get up and run from people at certain times. Now I'll be 41 in a couple of weeks, and I don't need that anymore. People aren't coming out to get me anymore. I'll be okay. But, my mind did that and said, hey, we're going to have this protection mechanism. And I can look at that and say, hey, I'm just going to be. I'm just going to live. I'm going to be okay. Like Buck says, thank goodness politicians never cheat or lie. And that's a thing too, is like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about it? Okay, you can vote. I did my part. I voted. End of story. Was there good options? No. But, you got to pick one, apparently, or whoever you want. And you look at it and you say, what can I do to live and work in the world? How can I do this? And the problem is that people know things. They know things without a shadow of a doubt because they see certain pieces of evidence that say, hey, your opinion is right. And what happens is your mind has something called a confirmation bias, which means if you decide one thing, right, like test this out, pick a side, say, hey, I'm going to say, yes, there's voter fraud, or I'm going to say, no, there's not voter fraud. Whichever direction you pick, when you watch the news, you are going to start to find information that supports your theory, and you're going to go with it. I don't care which one you pick. Doesn't matter. But it's a confirmation bias. Just like a confirmation bias in my brain that can be used for good is the confirmation bias that says, hey, look, alcohol does not work for you. You've proven it over and over. You say, oh, I'm just going to have one. And you have 21. And that's still not enough. And every time I tried to drink, just because I enjoyed it or whatever, or society thinks it's okay, and, for most people it is fine. But for me, it's not. And I had to get to that part where I said, I have decided that drinking's not working for me. And then my mind started looking at it and saying, yeah, there's all these bad things that happen. When you drink, this is how you feel and think. And you can use this for good, or you can just let it run amok. And I think what we've done up until now as alcoholics is we've let our lives run amok. And we've let it just do its thing, and we look at it as what's wrong with us. Nothing's wrong with you. You've adapted, and here you are. And the question isn't what's wrong with me, it's what's next. Okay, now what? Now what? Now what am I going to do? Like, you can't do anything about the election. Okay, you wake up tomorrow, they got the result, it's all counted. Now what? What am I going to do next? How am I going to live and work in the world? And you got to look at that, and you got to focus, because no matter what, there is always going to be uncertainty in our life and in our world. Always. Yes.
Yes, indeed. sorry for the blank spot. There's a comment here that I don't know if it's confirmation bias or not, but Ano says this one is I think it's a real good comment. Ano said, I started dreaming of drinking twice this past week. I'm scared that my dream will come true and that I relapse. And I had those dreams. Well, one thing is those dreams get less and less as your sobriety continues. I still, after 6 years, will have one of those dreams here and there. And now that I'm talking about it, I'll bet I'll have one soon. But in the beginning, they happened somewhat often. And same thing. I was scared when I'd wake up, but then eventually I learned to just, when I wake up, just think about it and be grateful, be happy that it was just a dream. And hey, I'm sober. It's all good. No worries. Okay.
And it doesn't mean anything. It's
Yeah.
like I said, the stuff that goes in your brain is the stuff that comes out. The other day I had a crazy dream, and it was about like I was in some middle school play and all this crazy stuff was happening. And I hadn't thought about that stuff for years. But if I retrace my day, there were certain things that led up to me having those kinds of thoughts in my brain, whether subconscious or conscious. And there was actually a test done. I remember years ago, I was watching some marketing video for my business, and they had taken this marketing crew from a plane, and they got in the taxi cab or the town car or whatever it was, and they drove them to the place where they were going to create a marketing like a playbook, like a drawing of what they were going to use for their marketing. And so what they did is they actually orchestrated the entire drive from the plane to the marketing place. And so they'd have people out there protesting with certain signs. They'd have people standing over here. They had a certain sale sign on a window. And they didn't tell these people anything. They just got in the car, they drove, and subconsciously they picked up what was going on around them. And then they get them into the marketing conference or meeting or whatever. It was like 5 guys. And this guy had a big board with a big envelope on it, and it was sealed and closed. And he tells the guys, he says, here's your paper. I want you to draw what you think is the best marketing campaign for this product. And so they get there, they're drawing. And finally they're done. And they say, hey, look at this drawing. And, they got like a bear and a slogan, and they got some ideas and some words and stuff like that. And so he goes and he takes the envelope that's been there the entire time, sealed, and he opens it up, and he shows them that his drawing is almost exactly what they came up with. And the reason it worked that way is because he knew 9 times out of 10, people that see this certain stimuli, it's going to get in your brain and it's going to affect what happens. It's kind of like that old thing you learned in art school where, if you don't have a picture of someone to draw, chances are you're going to make that person look like you subconsciously. Like, even if you don't mean to, that's just the way it happens. And we have to realize that our minds are not perfect. Our minds are biased. We jump to conclusions on very minute pieces of detail, like the boss was mad, I'm probably going to get fired. And you spend a week thinking about how you're going to get fired. You start looking for new jobs and all this stuff. And, you find out that the boss had a headache that day and it had nothing to do with you. But you planned your entire day, your entire week around this idea of I'm going to get fired because this one piece of stimuli came into my mind. And now I think this. It's very much your mind is a lens and you're getting what you focus on.
Yes, indeed. Oh, thanks, Derek, for telling us that you're not trying to turn this into a COVID chat. Thank you. There's, what I was going to talk about a little bit was just little things you can do as far as your daily activities for staying sober in these uncertain times. And we're talking a lot about the mindset, and that's really important. And part of supporting that mindset is doing things. So some of them might be like calling a friend that you can talk to about serious things, or if you're not locked down or whatever, go visit a friend. Or we talk about going to meetings a lot. You can do something like that. But if you are locked down, do the teleservice meetings and stuff like that, or the telemeetings. And you could, another thing that's important is in these uncertain times with all the stuff going on. I have a tendency to just turn on the news and watch it, and don't do that. Stick to your scheduled routine. That's what I do. Walk the dog in the morning. That's what I try to do, and do my long walk. I have a dog that's in training, so we train him in the evening and do my normal things throughout the day. And that helps me a lot. Obviously, I already said, limit your time in watching that news. Make sure you turn it off. Someone was saying I felt like drinking on election night, and you know what I did? I had it on. I was watching that. There was nothing else to do, it's pretty important. So, but I made popcorn and had a ginger ale instead. I didn't feel like drinking, but instead of just drinking ice water, which is what I usually do, I had something special, and popcorn, watch the non-entertainment.
Well, and it's interesting too because you look at it and we have become really addicted to immediate results. Like if you break it down and you look at it, okay, I watched the TV up until about 12 o'clock our time, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed because really, I kind of don't care. Like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens. And we've become really, really obsessed with it. Like, I know they're going to have a announcement from Nevada at 12 o'clock. And the tendency is, hey, I want to watch that. I want to find out what's going on. But really, if you had gone on vacation this week, nothing in your life would have changed. Like they're not going to decide the election without you and go against you if you're not watching it. It doesn't matter if you know right away. There is no prize for the first person who knows who the president is. There isn't. I mean, there's probably some kind of social prize if you like screenshot it and talk about stupid stuff on social media. But again, like yesterday, I was going crazy because I do Facebook for work, and part of my stuff is on Facebook. And, I'm scrolling through, and in the business community, a lot of people have a certain political persuasion that I disagree with. And they're posting all kinds of things about, hey, this is wrong. There's evidence of this. And, I tried my best to keep my cool. But for some reason, I feel like I have to be like the logic police. I don't know. It's probably my own narcissism. And I'm like, hey, you know what? We don't know anything. They're like, well, no, I know this for a fact. I'm like, well, I'm not a poll counter. I've never even seen a mail-in ballot. Maybe back in 2008, I think I did mail-in ballot or something like that. But I've never even seen it. Like, I don't know anything. We have to submit to the fact that we have no clue. Not a clue about a damn thing. Once we understand that, you can look at it and say, oh my God, I know nothing. This is terrible. Or you could look at it and say, hey, I have been unchained, and now I'm free to live my life. And there's a great allegory. And I didn't go to college, and I barely paid attention in school, so I learned the allegory late. And then I thought I was really smart for understanding philosophy, and all my friends were like, yeah, we learned that in like third grade. Where were you, dude? I'm like, well, I didn't pay attention in third grade, but, I feel smart now, at least as smart as a third grader. And the allegory is basically Plato's allegory of the cave, is where there are people chained to chairs, and they are looking at a wall. And on this wall is a reflection, because outside the cave, there's the sun, and there's a reflection of everything that's going on outside. So they see people walk by, and they're like, whoa, hey, check it out. This is life. These shadows are life. And they see the shadows get in a fight. They see the shadows do this. They see the shadows do that. And what happens is they try to make sense of their world by finding patterns. So they say, hey, every time that tall guy walks by, the sun goes down. The tall guy must cause the sun to go down. Every time these two people argue with each other, this happens. And while none of those things are related, you're basically like doing the rain dance, and it's like, hey, yeah, if you do the rain dance enough, pretty soon you're going to think that you caused the rain. Do you cause the rain? No. You just dance a whole lot, and it happens to rain. And the same thing happens in our life. And what happens is when we get out of that, we are released from the shackles. We can turn around and say, oh, hey, there's life going on behind us. We're sitting here making sense of the shadows, but there's actually life. And this is what happens in our minds is we have words and we have all these things that describe life. And we're sitting around describing life instead of actually living it, instead of actually feeling and living and breathing and saying, I am free from the shackles of this. Because there's so many people who say, this is good, this is bad. Like the old story of the farmer. There's a farmer, and he's out there, and he's got his farm, and everything's going good. It's a sunny day. All of a sudden, this random horse runs into his yard. And it's not like today where every horse is owned. Like this was back in the day where if a horse runs in your yard, you get to own a horse. Free horse. Yay. And so the horse runs in his yard, and his neighbors come over, and they're like, man, you just got a free horse. That's like going to triple your productivity on your farm. Your son can ride the horse and, pull the plow, and you just like pretty much won the lotto in terms of, 804 AD or whatever it was. And so he's there, and he's like, well, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. And then the next day, his son gets on the horse to triple that productivity, and he falls off and breaks his leg. And his neighbors come over, and they go, that horse is cursed. Your family is cursed because that horse came in, and your son fell, and now he broke his leg, and he can't even work. You guys aren't even going to be able to make your quota of potato farming or whatever. And so he goes, well, I don't know, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but all I know is he broke his leg, it's going to lay here, that's what we're going to do. Then the next day, the army comes, and they're like, there is a war, and we need every able-bodied gentleman to come fight the war. and they look around and they go, "Oh, you can't go to war. Your leg's broke." And everyone goes, "Oh, that's fantastic. Your son does that." And all along the way, everyone's jumping to these conclusions and they're getting all hyped up and they're getting sad and excited and angry over all these things. And the farmer's going, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's happening. Might be good, might be bad. Who knows?" Right? We look at it and we don't look past the end of our nose because we're only focused on what's going on right now. And we say, okay, well, this is going to happen or that's going to happen or this political thing's going to happen or that. And we look at it and people are like, what happens if the guy you don't like wins? And I'm like, well, maybe he'll screw things up so bad that we'll get another Bernie Sanders in 4 years. Hey, there could be good or, whatever it is. And we look at it and what we're doing is we're sitting there and we're judging everything instead of actually living life. And what I want to do is in my life, I want to live and be without these definitions and without these brick walls that we hit that say this is bad, this is good, that is bad, this is good, and just say, hey, I don't know what it is. This is what I've been dealt. This is what we're going to do. I might not know the certainty. I might not know. It's like those people, very religious people who say, God does that for good. God does that for bad. God does this for you. I don't know what God does. I don't even know what he looks like. I know what I think, but that's only what I think. That's a figment of my imagination. And if you go off of Bible terms, it's very clear that you're not supposed to go and have an image of what you think it is, right? And we're sitting around, our entire lives are about looking at images instead of actually saying, I don't know. I'm going to go sit out there. I'm going to turn off the news because I can't control it. And I'm just going to breathe and enjoy life. I'm going to be okay. Does that make sense to everyone?
Absolutely. And, that makes sense for sobriety too. When I first got sober, I had no idea what to do. And I had these ideas of now that I'm sober, I'm going to be rich and famous and da 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 da. I'm going to do all these things. But I physically wasn't able to. I was kind of forced to not look ahead. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to look behind, but my mind was such a mess at that time. I was physically in pretty bad shape as well. All I could do was focus on what I had to do today. And, I reached out and got people to suggest things for me to do towards my sobriety. And that's really all I was able to focus on. And as sobriety continued, I kept concentrating on that. And I started, and I still do, I think ahead, but I try not to focus on it too much. I think ahead as far as this is what I want. But at the same time, my experience in sobriety has shown me that so often things don't go the way I want them to. So I need to be able to adjust accordingly. And that's how I stay serene and happy with what's going on is, okay, this didn't quite go the way I wanted it to. What do I need to do now? And that's what helps me immensely in sobriety is just keeping that focus on right now. Every time I look forward and of course this political environment is the same. Every time I look forward, I start to get all stressed out about it. And, just keeping that focus on right now, that's fine. You were talking about last night. Last night, I heard that, okay, they're going to come out with another batch of results from Arizona at 9:30. Oh, okay, great. All right, cool. Let's wait and see what happens. And then they said nothing. I started to get pissed off. And I'm like, no, let it go. Go to bed. Jeez. Stop it. Stop watching. See, those little things can affect me so much, and I have to watch that on a minute by minute basis. Stop looking ahead. Stop worrying about it. Just deal with what I have to deal with that's right in front of me. And that's the way things tend to go. And, I'm a lot more productive when I do that.
I think one of the other things, too, is to look at progress, because we're not going to be perfect. Terry got mad at the TV last night. I did, too, but I was like, I'm going to bed because here 9:30 is 12:30, and I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed. I'm not going to wait for these clowns to count. And so I look at the progress I've made because, 5, 6 years ago, it was a whole different story. I was drunk. I was pissed. I would break things. I would yell at the TV. I'd get angry and pissed. And for what? For what? Some digit on a TV? Like that? That's it? Like there's other places in the world that they're not even dealing with this stuff. I don't care. Like, what's a president? I don't know. I'm going to do this. It's like that old saying in Zen Buddhism where he says, okay, there's this monk here and he chops wood and carries water. That's what he does. He chops the wood, carries the water. That's his job. And all of a sudden, he goes up to the big guru guy and he's like, hey, what do I do after I'm enlightened? And the guy goes, chop wood, carry water. And what we're looking for is some big altering, life changing thing instead of looking at the joy in what we do. Like how many of us, if you're married or something and you get in an argument with the spouse about who does the dishes or whatever, when you sit there and you do the dishes for an hour and you're all pissed off the entire time and you feel like you're the better one and whatever. And it's like, for what? For what? Why does it matter? Does it really matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Chop wood, carry water. When doing the dishes, do the dishes. Don't be somewhere else. Focus on it. Maybe give thanks for the fact that you got to clean dishes because you got food to eat. And pretty good food, too.
And you have dishes.
And you got dishes. And water, running water. There's places that don't have running water. And we look at it and we're like, hey, we're going to be okay. Let's see. You want to head to the comments, see what people are saying here?
Sure. Right. Kurt says, my spouse says I blame my bad behavior towards him on drinking, and then he hates that. And, for me in that situation, I personally would look at I'd try to look at it objectively, not when an argument's happening, but when I'm by myself, and I'd look at what my part in it is. Am I doing that? Or even if I don't see it, just really concentrate on trying not to do that. I try not to blame my spouse for anything, and I just try to look at what my part in every situation is, and if I can take care of the situation, then I do. It's a difficult thing when the other person is accusing you of blaming, but that's just what I try to do, is just keep it simple.
I would also look at the fact that if you say my spouse says I blame my bad behavior on drinking, the connotation there is that you're still drinking, which gives you the cycle of being able to have that as an option. And I think the biggest thing to do is to get alcohol off the table, and that problem will solve itself. Like, it's physically impossible to blame your drinking or your behavior on drinking if you're not drinking. Like, that's impossible. You're like, hey, I was mean to you last night because I drank and you didn't drink. You got all kinds of other problems we got to deal with. But you got to look at that and say, hey, if I take that off the table, this is going to be solved. And my guess is this has probably been an issue for quite some time. And it can be solved with something as simple as saying alcohol is now off the table. And that's the thing that I found is so many of my problems that I thought I was going to have to work through and struggle through became non-existent when I got sober. I was like, wow, wait a minute. Like, I don't even care about that anymore because that was something alcohol made me care about. And it changed the course of everything. And I think the key there would be, take that. She goes on to say, I was mean and resentful. I acknowledge that, and I take full responsibility. It did take 2 months after I faced being an addict to fully accept it. Yeah, and, we have to accept that what we do under the influence is still something we do. Because we're deciding to drink, therefore we are responsible. With that said, is it something you control? Is it something you would do normally? Probably not. A lot of things we do drunk, we wouldn't do normally. And so we have to look at that and say, okay, well, the choice was mine to be under the influence. What I did under the influence wasn't so much my choice, but I am responsible for it. And all this to say, the problem in your life is drinking. That's the problem. And we gotta isolate it and say that's the problem. There it is. Solve that, and I think your life will be a lot easier.
Yeah, like Buck says, as long as you don't drink, people will forgive you. But if you keep drinking, you're that person they hate. And for me, when I got sober, I had a lot of damage that I had left behind that I needed to fix. And a lot of that was just going and apologizing to people for just what I did. Not even if they did things wrong in that situation, I just apologized for what I did. And when I looked at what it was that I did or what my part in each situation was, most of the time it was the fact that I was drunk, and that's what my priority was, is drinking, or just my actions were that way because I was drunk. And it's that when I got sober, a lot of these, well, pretty much all the problems, but most of them went away. And most of those people, they started they started to accept me in a positive way just because I was sober. So, and a lot of these people, when I went to apologize to them, they're like, "Oh man, it's no big deal. Just stay sober. That's all I want you to do. I don't need nothing else from you. Just stay sober. I like you so much better when you're sober." And it was that simple. So taking the drinking off the table is huge.
Absolutely. And it's, we have to look at it very objectively because some people might not forgive you.
Yep.
Sometimes you do stuff that's just, and that is their prerogative. That's what they have. It doesn't make them bad or good. It just makes them hurt. And they have the right to forgive you or not forgive you. But you have the right to live a different way. And I came to a point when I got sober, because before I got sober, I apologized a lot. I was always, I'm sorry, I'm never going to drink again. I'm sorry, I can't believe I did that. Like a broken record. And when I got sober, I was like, okay, so do I go apologize to my kids and my spouse? And I was like, it seems dead. That apology seems completely dead and useless. And so instead of apologizing, I said to myself, I'm going to live different. That's
Yes.
what I'm going to do. I'm going to be different. I'm not going to talk about difference. I'm not going to talk about this or think about it. I'm going to be different. And the way I'm going to be different is deliberately choosing how I want my mind to operate. What do I want to think about all day? And you look at it and it's like, now that you're sober, you can choose. You have taken the shackles off. You've been turned around from that cave with the shadows, and now you see everything for what it is, and you could say, yeah, okay, I'm choosing to do this. And it makes life so much different, and it makes life so much better. Happy birthday, Rick. Happy birthday to Rick. Glad you're
Right on.
sober.
Happy birthday. And one more thing on the that what we've just been talking about is, sometimes the apologies that like Marcus is just saying, it's nothing. And just for me, some of the people, it was just living the life, whether it's because they're tired of hearing you say you're sorry, or like in my parents' case, their minds, dementia had kicked in and there was nothing I could apologize for. They didn't have the minds left, but I could be there and be a good person and act in a responsible way. And that's what I did. And that's what helped me the most, was just living the right way.
Absolutely. And if you guys like what you're hearing, you like hanging out on our show, and you want to support what we're doing, hop over to talksober.com. You can go there right here, talksober.com. Click on the big yellow button. This will give you access to MP3s, PDFs, and all kinds of tools that we've created for you to help you get and stay sober. You could just go over here to talksober.com, click the big yellow button. It'll take you to this form. Just put your first name, last name, email, all your information here. For $27 or less than a cheap drink a day, not even a cheap one, like a crappy one. You got to make it at home for that, right? And you get all those tools and everything like that. Also, if you feel like you do want to talk to Terry and I personally on a 1-hour call, you can get a 1-hour call as you need them. You just sign up here when you feel like you need a call, and you can get that for just $97. We have priced it pretty cheap. The idea is to get you to help support the channel rather than just charge you for a call, because, some people need that. So talksober.com to help support the channel. Everything goes to, the production here, everything like that. I know we want to be doing this more of a full-time thing, helping more alcoholics. And if you want to be part of that, go ahead and go to talksober.com, click on the yellow button, sign up, get all kinds of cool stuff, and know that you are helping out a good cause to help other alcoholics for less than $1 a day. You can't even get a coffee for that. So, I think that's a good deal. And listening to Terry alone is definitely worth 80 cents a day, I think.
Oh,
Maybe I'm worth like a penny. I don't know. But
no, let's see. We got Akbar and Derek have both said they watch the earlier episodes with you on the chalkboard and stuff, and they like them. So yeah,
there you go. So if you think
both
that's
have
worth 80
listened to
cents a
you.
day, then, there you go. And yeah, we definitely want to do this more full time and build it up, get more people watching, kind of change the way people think about addiction. Chris says, would you both talk to us on the phone? We actually use Zoom, so it's as long as you have a microphone on your computer, we can talk there. It's just like a phone call. Like, I don't turn my camera on because my cameras are all set for the live show, so it's just audio. And yeah, you talk to us both for an hour, and we make it work with your schedule. So just go ahead and sign up, and then we'll contact you about times that work for you and times that work for us, and can talk about anything you want. Buck says, I'm a proud member. Awesome. Glad to have you as a member. Definitely helps out, and hopefully you like the stuff that we give you to help you stay sober.
Right on. Thanks for all the accolades, everybody. That's nice. Let's see, what do we got? Chris, I'm on day 5 of not drinking and supposed to see alcohol intake counselor tomorrow for 3 hours, but going to cancel it. I don't know. When I got sober, I just did everything. And that's what helped me get on that road. I'm not sure what your reasons are for going probably to stop drinking, or for not going. But, I did everything. I mean, I did the AA meetings. I did the hospital. I saw a counselor. I did everything I possibly could, talk to other sober alcoholics. And then as I moved on in my sobriety, I started to figure out what was working for me, and that I wanted to focus on that stuff more. And that's what I did. That was because, the alcohol addiction for me, it was all encompassing. And that's all I thought about was drinking, or how to get the drink, how not to run out of the drink, how to make sure people didn't know I was drinking all the time, things like that. So that was all day, all night when I was drinking. So I really had to put 100% focus on it to get and stay sober. So just, there's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I would look at it as, I mean, I know you spent more than 3 hours wasting time drinking or drunk. So go there with an open mind. Say, hey, let's see what they got to say. I went to a couple of intake meetings. Some of them were a complete waste of time. Some of them I learned something from. But all of them, I couldn't drink during that 3-hour period. So that was a plus. I learned it was more kind of admitting I had a problem too. It was like, okay, I'm actually going here to try to get help. Whether this pans out or not, I'm actually taking active steps to do everything I can to stay sober. And I would really look at that and weigh it, because, we try to get out of everything as alcoholics. We just want to sit on our couch and drink. That's what we want to do. Or go to the bar and drink, or whatever your favorite place is. So we have to look at that and say, hey, is 3 hours really going to hurt me? Maybe they'll say something. Maybe they'll say, hey, you know what? You need to do this, or you need to do that. I would definitely go with an open mind. And also, when detoxing, see a doctor, which the intake person can probably help you with. And stop giving your alcohol ways out, because we always give it a way out. And we're like, oh, maybe if I just have one, or whatever it is.
On kind of the same subject, and that's Marcus just alluded to it, is Candor K said, home detox starts today for me as I am quarantined and have no chance to get the booze. Maybe that's a sign, opportunity to finally stop. That's awesome. I'm not sure where you're at as far as alcohol goes, but detox can be dangerous. And even if you're quarantined, I know my doctor does phone consultations, and I think most hospitals do, especially in this times of quarantine. Maybe it'd be a good idea to give them a call. We always recommend that you see a doctor, because detox can and is deadly sometimes for people. So just go on the safe side. That's what I did.
Absolutely.
It did almost kill me. So.
Yeah, David says, do you think it's harder to give up booze as a 1 day a week binger or an everyday drinker? I don't think it matters. I think what matters is the grip that it has on you. If you're struggling to give up drinking, or you're struggling to quit, there's a drinking problem. And I don't think the magnitude really is as important as what you do to get sober. Like, there's all these things that we focus on. And I focused for about a year and a half before I got sober. And it was probably the worst year and a half for me because I was drunk and it was miserable. I focused on all the things that I thought, oh, it's psychology, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, it's this, instead of focusing on, let's just quit. What am I going to do to stay sober today? Once I started saying, forget all that other stuff, what am I going to do to stay sober today? That's really the key, is how do I live and work in the world staying sober?
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways to look at that. There's different ways to look at everything. And somebody mentioned earlier, do you think all the pollsters for the election should be fired? Well, I've heard both sides of the argument this morning on the news, and they both sounded pretty legit. As far as a binge drinker or an everyday drinker, I was an everyday drinker and a binge drinker. I binged all day long. But yeah, I had a hard time quitting. But then I've worked with people that are binge drinkers, and then I didn't see them having any easier of a time quitting because they would get in that mindset of, I've been sober for 5 days, I'm good. I can go drink. It's all good. I'll go out on Friday night and enjoy myself, and it'll be all right. And then they wake up, Monday morning for work, and they're like, why did I do that? And then they keep going on that same merry-go-round. My merry-go-round in drinking was the same thing, only it was just all day. Drink, pass out, wake up, drink. They're the binge drinkers. They just put some time in between, but it's the same thing.
Buck says, when I was watching the election, I was thinking what you guys would be saying. Relax, whoever wins, you're going to be okay. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, not that much changes. It's funny because in life, we like to give credit to like other things. Like, oh, I'm doing good. Like I was looking at it the other day and I'm like, okay, am I doing good in business because of the election stuff? Because, I got sober 6 years ago. 4 years ago, I started doing a little bit better in the business. And I'm doing better in the business because I don't drink. I'm more focused, and I started a new avenue. Now, a lot of people would look at that and say, well, it's because of the politics. It's taxes. It's this. It's like, no, my tax bill hasn't gone down that much. Actually, and it's funny because I was talking to my kids about it, and they were like, did you get a tax break from Trump? I'm like, yes, I did. And they said, oh, does that work good? And I said, no, because now I pay $20,000 more a year in health insurance. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just, you're sending one check here and one check here. It's the same thing. It's like it doesn't matter. Samantha says, could you explain emotional sobriety and how to deal with that compared to physical cravings? Yes. The big key with physical cravings and mental cravings is to realize that they're not real. Like, your body has been programmed to say, I want drink for this. I want drink for that. I need a drink. I got to have the drink. And it's not real. Like, they're not going to, your physical cravings are not going to come out of your mind and beat you up. They're just going to be like an itch you can't scratch. And if you ever had like a broken bone and they put the cast on, and I think they actually make the cast out of like the most itchy stuff on the planet. I think they deliberately go out there and they're like, let's find the most itchy stuff on the planet and put it in a cast. And they put your arm in the cast and, you're fine for about a week. And then the thing starts itching like crazy. And they're like, don't scratch it, and you're like hell, I'm not going to scratch it. And the funny thing about it is with an itch, it's naturally going to go away on its own. It will not, it just does. It's a fact. If you can't scratch an itch, it will go away. Now, if you scratch it, it gets worse and you start, going crazy. Same thing with alcohol cravings. It will go away on its own. You don't have to drink. It makes you think you have to drink, makes you feel you want to. And the problem with life is that we think we should always get what we want. For some reason in our society, we are like, I should always get what I want. I should always have this. I want to go there. And there's a problem with that because, we could literally go get whatever food we want. Like, I can go get whatever I want within 30-mile distance. And so we're programmed to thinking that. And when you look at cravings like an itch, it's like it's going to go away. It's going to be there. And the emotional attachment, obviously you're going to be that way. Like, don't beat yourself up over it. We all have cravings from time to time. Go to a ball game, you see a guy with, those 400-ounce beers that they give you for $800 or whatever they cost, and you're like, that would be nice. And you're like, okay, yeah, obviously that's going to be a craving. That's something I enjoyed. It's something that I did a lot of. And so that's natural. And when we stop giving it the stigma of, oh, I got to do something about the craving. No, you don't. Let it be there. It's like thoughts. You get crazy thoughts in your head. Okay, and I used to think that my crazy thoughts in my head, it meant I was bad or it meant I was good. No, it's just chemical impulses in the brain. If I watch a TV show about aliens for 6 months straight, I'm going to start to think aliens are, under my house. Are there more aliens? No. It's just something that comes in my mind. And so we look at it, and your mind is like a lens. You get what you focus on. And if you focus on something other than the craving, and you accept it and say, yeah, I got a craving. Obviously, I'm going to crave it. I drank for X amount of years. There's going to be a craving. But you can stop the world with 15 minutes. You can pause and say, for 15 minutes, I'm just going to let that craving be. It's just sitting over there in the corner of my mind. I'm not going to listen to it. And it's going to yell. And it's going to shout. And it's going to make you anxious. And it's going to make you feel weird. But you know what? You don't have to listen. Do something else for 15 minutes. At the end of 15 minutes, if you still have a craving, repeat the exercise. And keep doing it until it's second nature. Now, it's second nature. I hardly ever get cravings. Hardly ever. I probably crave soda more than I crave alcohol now. I know soda's not too good for me, but sometimes I just like the sugar, But we got to look at that and we got to focus. So hopefully that helps.
So Armando had said alcohol and fitness definitely not compatible. I'm trying to see if somebody said something earlier, but further down, Derek kind of answered. Yeah, it's bizarre because I try telling people about the detrimental effects of booze on fitness, and then the people just lie to themselves and, whoops, I just scrolled past it and consume it. I don't know. I don't get it. And you guys are right. For the normal person, that's just, yeah, alcohol and physical fitness don't combine. But for me as an alcoholic, let's see, before it got really bad for me, I was in martial arts. I earned a black belt. I fought in the ring. I did all this stuff. Then I started getting into cycling when I was heavily drinking, when I was drinking alcoholically. I rode 100-mile bike rides. I mixed them. It worked. I thought I was going to explode at some day, and I kind of did actually. But that's the insanity of alcoholism, is we just do these things that, yeah, they don't mix. They're not supposed to mix, yet we do it anyways. And that's the crazy thing about this. But thanks for bringing that up.
Kimberly says, is it safe to quit drinking on your own if you drink 2 bottles of wine at a night? Detox is never safe. It is deadly. It's one of the more deadly type of drugs to get off of because of what it does to your body. I would always, out of an abundance of caution, go to the doctor. One, because you don't know what kind of havoc this wreaked on your body. And two, you should go to the doctor even if you've been drinking any amount. But 2 bottles of wine is not a slouch. Like that's what, about 5-6 glasses?
That would be 8 glasses.
8 glasses. So 8 glasses of wine, that's pretty alcoholically. Yeah, I mean, I would have pretty close to that amount. It was usually lots of different things. But yeah, I would totally go to the doctor for that because, there's a lot of bad things that can happen when you're trying to detox. So I would absolutely go to the doctor. Even if you think you're fine, go anyway.
Yep. Quantities for an alcoholic, everybody's quantity is different. Mm-hmm. It's not, and I'm not saying that yes, it has to do with your weight and your size somewhat, but really it's how it affects you. And are you getting those negative consequences and you keep on drinking, even though you're getting negative consequences? That's a sign right there. But you have to, for me, a lot of people, I see a lot on our webinars here that a lot of people ask, should I go to the doctor and stuff like that? And I was the same way. I never wanted to go to the doctor, and I didn't for years and years and years until I was forced to. And the doctor's there to help you. And why didn't I go? Because I was afraid he was going to say something to me to make me have to quit, and I was embarrassed. I had this fear of him saying, "Oh, you're a loser alcoholic," but none of that happened. As far as him embarrassing me and stuff like that, they did say you have to quit,
Yeah.
of course,
And
because I was not going to survive. But it was that fear and that's one thing I had to get over when I was getting sober was that fear of what other people were going to think of me or say or whatever, and just do what I had to do to get sober.
yeah.
Things. Go ahead.
Kimberly did a follow up. She said, I have blood work done every 6 months and it's been fine.
Good.
I don't know if the havoc that happens actually shows up on blood work. I'm very uneducated doctor wise. But I would say go anyway and tell them exactly what's going on and how much you're drinking, just to be on the safe side because you don't know. And maybe he'll have some tips for you on what to replace it with and how to deal with it because, seizures are a big worry for alcoholics. All kinds of other problems are a big worry. I know for me, detox was literal hell. I saw things, I heard things, I felt like I was going to fall over, felt like I was going to pass out. I couldn't eat, I was trembling. I'm glad I went to the doctor that day. I'm very glad. I know Terry's glad he went to the doctor that day because he might not be here this day. And you really, really got to take care of yourself. And that's the first thing. Like, are you not worth going to the doctor? Like, I think your life's worth it. Definitely go. Get what you need to get done, and focus on sobriety. And then, hopefully we'll see you 6 months from now at your next test or whatever. And you'll be like, hey, I went to the doctor. I'm good. And I've been sober for 6 months. And watch how your life starts to change because you don't have to feel the way that you feel right now anymore. Don't have to feel this way. I didn't believe it. People said, oh, the anxiety, it's, you don't have to feel this way. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? This is life. And I found out I don't have to feel that way. Everything's in my mind and it's all altered by alcohol and I don't need to deal with it. I can just put alcohol over there and, if it yells at me to drink it, I don't have to listen. I'll be okay. Kimberly says, my doctor said if you drink 2 bottles, then cut back to a bottle and a half, and then 1 bottle, and then cut half a bottle, and so on. Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with your doctor, but I would really ask yourself if you're an alcoholic. And the definition of an alcoholic is someone who drinks even though negative consequences are in their life. So if there's bad things happening because of your drinking and you're continuing to drink, that's the definition of an alcoholic. Whether it's 1, whether it's 10, whether it's 20, got to look at that.
And hey, Kimberly, if you're going to follow his advice on that, make sure you can do that. If you find yourself not being able to cut back and then get to the point of stopping, then yeah, you're going to have to stop.
And it could be dangerous too, because what happens is you're still opening the door for alcohol. So for me, and I think Terry could probably weigh on this a little better than me, when you stop, when you pick up again, it tends to be the same amount at which you stopped. So like if you're like, oh, I'm just going to go from, 1 bottle of wine or 2 bottles of wine down to a glass of wine. Okay, fine. You're going on, you have your glass of wine every day. All of a sudden a bad day happens, you chug 2 bottles, and that 2 bottles is going to wreak a lot more hell on your mind and your body because you're not used to it. Like our body gets used to it. Like if I went out and drank as much as I drank the day I got sober, I'd be probably dead or in the hospital because there's no possible way I can handle that right now. I was actually at deadly limits. They were like, how are you even awake? How are you even alive? I mean, you should not be. And I know if I did that today, it'd be a big one. So Terry, did you have that experience where it was like?
Yeah. So I had quit for, 30 days in the rehab and then a couple of weeks after that. And then I picked up again and I just planned on having a couple. And that I was back to full blast in 3 days, 2 days. I was back to right where I was when I stopped. And that was a huge amount of liquor. And then soon after that, I was drinking even more than that. And I've heard that story from people many times. And I've also read that the uh, the addiction doesn't always, but it will usually stay at the same level, but it can keep going up. So tolerance level, all that continues to go up. As far as alcohol is concerned, um, where your tolerance level will just keep going up and up, where you need more to get that feeling, even if you've stopped drinking. And I've heard that story from so many people. So
James and Chris. James says life sucks. Chris says yes, life sucks, and it's the biggest trigger for me. Well, you have to look at what your definition of sucking is. Like I could say life sucks, and you have to look at what does it mean that life sucks. Well, usually what it means, as Buddha used to say, the root cause of suffering is desire. So if you think life sucks, it's because you desire something different. What is it that you're desiring that's different? Okay, more money, more friends, a better spouse, this, whatever. And you look at that and you focus and you're like, okay, wait a minute. What is it that really, really sucks about life? Well, nothing. Like I can have the shittiest day, and then about 6 months ago, I had a really crappy day. Like if there was going to be a day I was going to drink in sobriety, that was it. And I got away from my screens that said life sucked because I was like judging my self-worth on how much money I was making and how my business was doing, which was an old habit. And then I got away from the screens and I went and sat on the grass and I'm like, life does not suck. There's a bird over there. There's a tree that just comes out of the ground and gives me nutritious food. Like that does not suck. There's a dog that she's so cuddly it'll drive you nuts. You have a bad day, that dog is like on you, and she's 90 pounds. So it's like, dude, come on now. A little heavy, but life doesn't suck. What you're focusing on might suck, and the suckage is your interpretation of what you're focusing on. But in life, there's a lot of wonderful things. You just have to look for them, and you have to be willing to say, that's wonderful, and I can be a part of it. The problem is we live in a culture that's so self-absorbed. I want what I want right now, and if I don't get it, I'm going to throw a fit, and I'm going to go to the bar, and I'm going to get drunk. Oh, yeah, you really showed life. What if instead we said, hey, you know what? I'm going to enjoy the things that are the basic things. Eating, going for a walk, doing this. Like a couple months ago, or about 3 weeks ago, I went to the doctor, and I knew I probably wasn't okay. And he's like, dude, yeah, your cholesterol is like 1 point from being on medicine. And I'm like, I don't want to go on cholesterol medicine. Hell no. And he's like, I don't want you to either. You're 40. I'm not going to prescribe it until you do this stuff because I think you can lower it. And, you know, I thought, oh, that sucks. I can't go eat grease for dinner. I can't cook the way I usually cook. I'm one of those cooks that's like, use the whole thing. You know, the grease is in there because you're supposed to like make the stuff out of the grease. And he's like, well, you can't use it. Like, just get the grease out of there. And I was like, oh, life sucks. And he told me to go for walks. And I'm like, I don't want to wake up and waste an hour of my day walking. And I started walking. And my wife and I have connected better. We enjoy the outside. I feel better. I have more energy than I've had in years over something that initially I thought sucked. But it opened my eyes to say, hey, there's so much more out there. And when we look at it, like, what is it that actually sucks? Nothing. I mean, what are you, like politics, money, finances, whatever? That's not your life. You're in the cave. You're looking at the shadows and you're saying, that's life. That sucks. Look at that. That sucks. You got to turn around and say, hey, life's out here. There's a tree. There's a grass. There's water. There's lakes. There's fish. There's all these amazing things in life. And you're sitting there focusing on what you don't have or what you want or what you need or what's bad. You can stand... What is the saying? Yes, stand for something or fall for everything. And if you stand up and say, I am for good life, I'm for happiness, and study philosophy. You know, what you got to do if you think life sucks is counteract that idea. Counteract it, right? You're sitting there watching the news. Oh, everyone's rioting. Everyone in America. I remember my brother calls me, people are rioting by my house. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're 20 miles away. Well, yeah, they're in the city. And I'm like, and he says, oh, everyone in America's rioting. I said, they're not rioting. There's no one out there. My neighbor's out there taking his trash out. He's not having a riot. Like, there's literally like maybe 1,000 people having a riot, maybe 10,000. There's 300 million people in this country, but everyone's rioting. It's like you gotta look broader. You gotta look at it and say there are miracles that go on. There's so much going on, and I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna chill. Life is good if we look at the good. If you look at the bad, yeah, that's fine. At any rate, that's my little spiel on that.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, we are about out of time. Do you see any like big comments we need to address with issues? I see a lot of people saying thanks and they like the stream and stuff like that. Thanks for that, Megan, Daniel, David, Ano, Buck, lots of people.
Yeah, good to see you guys all. Lots of regulars, a few new people. Awesome.
All right, guys, make sure you subscribe. Click that thumbs up button, the like button. Go over to talksober.com and you can click the yellow button, sign up for our sobriety training course. It'll change your mind in terms of how you think about sobriety. Again, that's talksober.com. Go sign up now, and we'll see you next week.